special guest here, the beautiful Taylor Coulter. She is joining us today, and she's going to be talking to us about mental health in the Black community and stigmas, and just a whole rounded conversation about it. Something we've never done here before. Of course, we kind of talk about it a little bit because Donovan is 5150. He's like grown, right? But we don't talk about it.
Where's my check? Where's my check?
Which one?
Right.
Donovan getting checks. He's got like racks everywhere. So anyway, so yes, we're gonna have a more formal conversation about mental wellness, and we want to take a little bit serious than normal, but we gonna also have fun too, because that's what we do. And so, Tay, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit something about yourself? Wait. And I'm sorry. One thing, I'm so rude. Hello to those on the podcast, all 11 of you. How are you doing today? Eventually we will figure out how to get your comments. We're still trying to figure that out. Also to YouTube, for those of you who are not already subscribed, please do so and like. So we can continue bringing you more insightful commentary. All right, now let's get into Miss Tay. Yes, Donovan.
Yes, just before we start,
yes,
you've got two cameras you got to deal with. This is the YouTube camera.
Okay.
And that's the live camera, so you're going to have to kind of...
And his hidden camera.
Yeah. So, you're going to have to kind of pan to both. Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
That's fine.
There you go. So go ahead.
Hello, everyone. Again, my name is Tay Coulter. I am 25 years old. I know the big question is, what do you know about mental health? I am not a licensed professional. However, me as someone, I am 5150, 5250 actually. And so I've dealt with a lot of mental health issues within myself. I have 3 different mental illnesses. I've been admitted before. And I want to talk about pretty much like the warning signs that you can see in your own family members and things like that today. And also, I am in school for psychology, so there's a lot of stuff I'm currently being trained on.
Okay, and then so also I forgot to say hello to you guys on Facebook. I will get to every last one of your comments. And so you gave us 2 terms. You said 5150 and 5250. Okay, so can you explain what those are?
Okay, so 5150 is a 72-hour hold. That's something that's known, and I believe it's only a California thing. It's called 5150.
It's the penal code.
Right. Uh-huh. And so a lot of people don't understand how important this is to be okay with being 5150 at times. So what happens is you voluntarily committed into a psychiatric facility for 72 hours. Now, if you are not deemed to be mentally healthy and safe for yourself and others within that 72 hours, you will be placed on a 5250, which is up to 14 days, a 14-day hold. Now, you can be released within those 14 days, but if by the end of those 14 days you are still deemed to be unsafe, then it will go to a judge, and the judge will have to determine if you are okay to go home or if you need to stay in the facility.
Okay, so let me just try to clarify this. Okay, so those codes that she gave are penal codes for California, and a lot of us, and it's probably very politically incorrect, have heard that code as the crazy code. Mm-hmm. So if you're 5150, people say it's the crazy code. That probably is very politically incorrect.
Yeah, didn't Eazy have a song like that? 51 hit an album, 5150.
I believe it was. Yeah. So people, you probably heard that term used before. Okay, so let me just get this straight. So when you're 5150, that is a voluntary hold.
It could be voluntary or involuntary, regardless, but you still have to sign away and say, okay, I get it, I'm here. And so it's not, a lot of people do say, oh, that person's 5150, to describe somebody, crazy or whatever. But honestly, and that's what pretty much that stigma, say it as if it's something taboo, when in reality it's not. Sometimes it could be the difference between life or death for you or a family member or anything like that.
Okay, so let me ask you, since we're here, what would cause, let's say in your situation, what caused you to have a 5150 or 5250 hold? What happened to spur that, if you will?
Well, I suffered from a lot of trauma when I was younger and as an adult, and went through a lot of different things very fast. I had a whole year, the year of 2014, which I was 19 and went through everything under the sun in a very short period of time. I never really went through the right therapy and process to deal with that, so I coped in a lot of unhealthy ways. So because I became celibate and I cut off sex. Now, sex was, I wasn't, hoeing, But I was staying in, unhealthy relationships with
Relationships.
people because sex was my coping mechanism, because I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't
Right.
do any of those things.
Okay.
And so once I became celibate and I cut that off, there was no feel good for me anymore. I started eating, but it wasn't enough. And so my body started to, or my brain started to react to all of those traumas that I was repressing for so long. So it got to a point where I just kept saying, I need a vacation. I need a break. I need to just de-stress. I need a bath. I need to go to a spa. I kept saying those things, but in reality, it was my mental that was breaking down. And those were the warning signs I was giving people. And so what happened was I made the decision to end my life that day.
Oh.
And, so it's really big, and a lot of people have been there and they don't talk about it, but I found myself comfortable enough to talk about it because it's so important.
Right.
Did you have a question?
No, I'm listening.
Okay.
I'm listening.
And so I decided to end my life. I overdosed on pain medicine, and I had some.
And you said this when you were 19?
No, actually, I was 22.
22. Okay.
Right. So, this was in 2017. It was October 2017, right before my 23rd birthday. So I turned 23 in the hospital, actually. And I took what I felt like I needed to take, and it took hours for my family to find me. I finally broke down because my father was crying to me on the phone, begging me to let him know where I was. And I finally I broke down and told him where I was, and I allowed for him to come and save me.
Okay.
And
Amen.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just saying, well, at least you had a father you can call.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was, my whole family was looking for me for I think about 4 hours, and I was in it. I was passing out and waking up. So I had no recollection of how much time was passing and how long they were looking for me. And so once they found me, my father immediately drove me to Kaiser emergency room. And from there, I was committed. I was in the hospital from Thursday until Saturday. And Saturday, I went to the psychiatric hospital.
Oh, wow. Okay, so how are you now?
Oh, my God. I just told my mom the other day, I said, this is the happiest I feel like I've been in, I don't know, possibly my whole life.
And so throughout that time, from the time that you tried to take your life, which was about 3 years ago, what have you done to get to the place you're at now?
Therapy.
Therapy.
I've been in therapy extensively for 2 years now. I was in a life group through my church with a group of girls going through things. I was on medication for a couple of months. I was on medication from October to about when I got pregnant, which was like May-ish. Mm-hmm. And so just those couple of months, I gained a lot of weight on the medication, but it helped so much. So I did all of those things. I learned how to communicate with my family about what was going on. Because I went through that incident, my family was able to take mental health more seriously because they almost lost a family member because of it. And so now people started, how are you doing?
Right.
Checking in. How are you feeling? How are you dealing with the things that you're going through? Are you okay? I started to get more concerned for my mental health and what I was going through at the time that I was getting before, other than, oh, you'll be all right. It's life. We all go
Takes
through
a
it.
Robitussin.
Yeah. Exactly.
Right. Here's everything.
Right. Exactly. I've been through worse. I've been through
Right.
that,
But let me ask you this.
Yeah.
What do you think about when people say, oh, pray about it, or I'm going to pray for
right.
you?
So that's one of the things I wanted to talk about today. And I feel like there's 3 major reasons why in the Black community people stray away from mental health.
Okay.
So that, to me, is the number one reason is we use God as a Band-Aid for everything. And that's in the Black church specifically. And so there's 2 different things I want to say about that. One is that it took for me to go to a non-Black church in order for them to say, hey, maybe you need therapy.
Right.
It's okay to be on medication,
No, girl, we're just going to sit and pray with you. You don't need nothing else.
Right.
By the way, I need another donation for the church foundation.
Exactly. And so because it took for a pastor looked at me and said, it's okay to go to therapy. Yeah. That allowed for me to accept that, because I thought, because we get this guilt as Christians, I'm a Christian, or we get this guilt as anything that your religion is, because you're supposed to have faith, you're supposed to, God is supposed to be Jesus. Let Jesus be your therapist,
right.
And all of these things, and you're supposed to be steadfast and all of that. So because we get stuck in that, now we feel like if we can't get rid of our depression, we're a bad, follower.
Or you don't have faith.
You don't have enough faith.
Yeah.
Right. So now there's something wrong with you. And I think that's my second thing, is that leads to people leaving the church now. So they don't deal with issues. They don't go to therapy. And now they've left the church. So they completely given up on any of the vessels that can help them. So I think it was Peter who didn't get in the boat. Right.
Correct.
And God continued to send him vessels. Now, I'm going to come out of the Bible because a lot of people stopped listening at that point. So I'm going to say it like this. If the same way people say, let Jesus be your therapist. Now, what if I said, let Jesus be your chef? You going to go in the kitchen and wait for him to come down and make you a sandwich?
Because y'all, what does the Bible say about faith?
It's null and void without action.
Faith without works is dead.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And so now, what God is going to do is send your mama in there and say, baby, you hungry? You want me to cook you something? No, Mom, I'm good. Jesus is going to be my chef.
Right.
Your brother come in here, hey, I got some pizza. You want some? Oh, no. So we deny all these avenues that God puts in our life. Well, your mom or your mother, brother, sister, whoever may be struggling with their own things. So when it comes to your mental health, there's people out there who are trained to help you.
Right.
Because you have family members and people around you to support you who they may not be able to take on all of that because they got their whole load to deal with. So they may be like, oh, you'll get over it, because they don't want to deal with
Absolutely.
it. And now you've repressed so much with yourself because you didn't go to the right person,
right.
which would be somebody who's trained to deal with those things.
So let me ask you this question real quick. So you said that, the pastor had said, hey, you need therapy, right?
Mm-hmm.
If a regular person came to you, let's say a regular person in our community, a black community, said, hey, you need therapy, would you have taken it from somebody who's a peer?
I think I would have considered it and talked with that person about it. I had tried therapy multiple times, and the first time I went through it, it did help. It was after I was after I was raped, actually. Ooh. And that worked. And then I tried another therapist who I just didn't seem like she was tapping into where I was at. And so I feel like if someone had came up to me and said, hey, maybe you should try therapy, I may have denied it and said, oh, well, I'm too far gone. Or I may have considered and said, well, how do I get therapy?
Yeah, because I'm saying that because like in our community, when we say something to each other, it's usually a joke. We're like, we don't take it serious. Like,
right.
Nigga, you need, you need
And
help.
I think, too, let me get these comments and I'm going to ask you something. So, Tay, our other Tay, the resident Tay of
my love
Facebook
interest.
Live, she says, what an important conversation that is desperately needed. Yes, indeed. And Walter says prayer has been turned to laziness. And you also say y'all trying to get her killed, laugh out loud, talk about prayer and, the black church and all that.
Yeah.
So, in your opinion, do you think there's more of us in our community that need therapy?
Yes. I can answer that.
Well, we know you do.
No.
That's an emphatic yes for Donovan. Okay?
Yes.
And because I guess I'm asking because a lot of times when we think of therapy, we think of somebody who's just like cuckoo,
gone.
Right.
talking to themselves and all of that kind of stuff. But we don't think about the everyday person. Like somebody might have looked at you and said, well, there's nothing wrong with her.
Comes from a good family,
but So that's what I'm saying. So a lot of times we think that person is obvious, like they obviously need to go sit on somebody's couch,
right?
But so, in your opinion, would you say? I mean, I obviously know the answer, but what would you say?
What I say is that for one, everybody needs therapy.
Everybody
because nobody
needs therapy.
is perfect, and whether you're going every week or whether you're going every 3 months, it's good to have a check-in. The same way, it's good for women. We go to the OB, every now and then.
Some of y'all.
Well, we should. Everybody should. You should go and get your check-in. You should go every now and then to the dentist to get a cleaning. Well, you need to do the same thing for your mental health. Everybody. Okay. And so what I will say is that people don't understand that there are levels to depression. There's levels to anxiety. There's levels to mental illness. And so what we see on TV is, the highest level. We see schizophrenia. We see all of those things.
Yeah.
I was scared to go to the psychiatric hospital because I was thinking of The Changeling with Angelina Jolie.
Right.
They do the lobotomy on you and all that.
So when you have, when you have those images in Hollywood of that, you're scared of that. And for you, it's like, I'm not there yet. I don't need that, now. But yet you have people who, they got to smoke weed every day. They have to take a shot just to go to work every morning. Or, they're quitting jobs because they can't stay in control. And you have people who are doing these things and they don't realize you need to go to therapy. You're struggling because, you may have an abuser in the family who's still around and you haven't dealt with it, or you have repressed feelings because your father left a long time ago. There's a lot of people who say, oh, I'm fine, I don't need to deal with any of that. But then you're failing to see where in your life the traumatic incidents or some, abandonment has what's the word I want to say,
it's called
stopped you from moving forward and being at peace with yourself and being better. So a lot of people don't realize that their peace is disturbed and they have very unhealthy coping mechanisms to work on that peace. And so therapy will allow you to not need so many things to supplement every day and allow you to have more balance.
So many Band-Aids.
Yes.
As
so
you
many
said
Band-Aids.
earlier.
You have so many Band-Aids on a wound when you could just really take all
Heal
that
it
off,
all together.
get it all together to where you don't need all of that every single day. So I believe a lot of people in the Black community need a therapy because we did grow up with grandmothers who, you'll be all right, don't worry about it.
Yeah, the old way of dealing with
and we
issues.
have,
You put some holy oil, some holy water on
and
your
so we have people who are, possibly those grandmothers or aunties are protecting our abusers as well.
Oh, of course, without a doubt. Ray, you can't, I don't know, nothing wrong with little Pookie, even though he's in and out of jail. Nothing wrong with that. But let me ask you this question real quick. You delineated the different codes, 5150, 5152.
5250.
5250. Did you remember a young lady named Mitrice Richardson?
No.
Okay, she was the girl that was in the Lost Hills Sheriff's Station. They let her out late at night, and she had exhibited,
50. They said like 50, 150 signs.
Right, signs and stuff like that.
Mental trauma
and she was having a mental break or whatever, and they didn't recognize it at the time, and they ended up letting her go late at night, and she ended up getting killed whenever it was. Do you think that there needs to be more legislation to protect the mentally ill? Because
definitely. We have homeless. We call them homeless when in reality,
and that's really a mental
they're
illness.
mentally ill. They can't
Situation.
support themselves. They can't hold down a job. They're drug addicts because they're mentally ill. There's some people who even have something going on with them with their health and that they're in pain. So now they're addicted to pain meds. So there's so many deeper issues, and I feel that if we and you have people also people don't realize how many kids go into the system and age out of the system, and they don't have anything now. I think I was watching the movie Instant Family, and they said about 50% of them end up on the streets.
At the end of the day,
24 hours.
They get to a
yeah,
certain
it all
age.
comes down to money. It all comes down to money.
And so if we had more avenues out there that protected us and that worked on people's mental health, then I feel that we can clean up our streets. We could clean up our colleges and these areas where you have people turning to homelessness and drug addiction and things like that. And I know a cop told me that there's a lot of people on the streets who they do certain crimes in order for them to end up in jail because you get 3 meals a day, you get somewhere to sleep. Well, you got people out here doing crazy stuff too, so they could be committed as well. But if we're addressing stuff head on, if we're addressing homelessness by starting with dealing with big pharma and the pain meds, and we're dealing with mental health issues, if we're addressing that stuff, that's how we go about addressing the issues of why these people are.
Because I always say too, especially with the homeless issue, a lot of times people, that's a stigma in and of itself. People think homeless people are out there because they're lazy. They don't want to work. They just want a handout. Well, I know of people. In fact, I knew of somebody not too long ago who was out there and had plenty of places to go.
I told you not to tell nobody. Okay. I was doing a study.
Right, you're right. They have plenty of places to go, but they're like, I'm going to figure it out. I'm okay out here, and they weren't okay out there because being homeless takes a toll on you. But then I think some of that we have to address and say, well, maybe there is some mental illness going on. And this is just for me, somebody who has a roof over her head every day, on a bed to lie in or whatever. I think you got to be crazy to willingly want to be out there on the street. Now, this is just me. Maybe some people just, don't mind being out there. But I think there's got to be. So I guess what I'm asking is, how do we enlighten people to that? To me, it's ignorance to say people just want to be out there because they're lazy. How do you address that?
I know that there are some people who have felt ill to their addictions and things like that. There are people who are just out there to be out there, and no matter what the situation is, there's gonna be homeless, people. Like before we had houses and all of that, nobody was homeless. We just we lived, so
capitalism.
Yeah, we created homelessness when we created homes, and so there are going to be some people out there. But I think if we actually learn people's stories, because I also heard somewhere that I think the average American is only 2 paychecks away from
it's one paycheck.
Yeah. One paycheck. One paycheck. And so we have to come down from our own privilege and check ourselves, because you have to think, well, maybe if I didn't have that grant for school, I'd have to be able to go into the dorms or anything like that. Or if I didn't have this auntie that I live with over here in this state. So we have to check our own privilege and understanding that not everybody has a whole bunch of family. Right. We were speaking before the show saying that everybody doesn't have family. Your mom may have moved away from her whole family. Now you don't have no brothers, cousins, or anybody to turn to. Well, if who would have helped you? Right. There's people who have kids, so they can't go and live in any situation. I tell people all the time, if I didn't have my daughter, I could be in somebody's dorm room right now. I could have been getting flued out, But, I'm married. So, but if everybody's situation could have been so different. And so the way we can address things is checking our own privilege and understanding that, okay, so how do we help those who don't have the avenues? What can we do within our federal budget, which is a lot more than what people think it is, in order to help these people and come up with programs to where no one has to be homeless just because they didn't have a paycheck.
Right. So I'll get to these other comments here. Al's got a joke on. Have mercy. Sorry.
I can see it, kind of.
He says, I have bipolarity disorder, generalized anxiety, mental illness, and psychosis, which has more friends than I had in school. This fool is ridiculous. And Patricia, what's happening? He says, thank you for this discussion. Yes, it is long overdue. And it was actually Tay's idea. She's like, I'm coming on the show. I said, what you going to talk about? And she said, she want to talk about this. I said, well, come on.
No, and a lot of people, let me just say this real quick. You worked at the VA, so you saw a lot of the PTSD situations and...
Well, actually, what's so crazy is that we had a homeless guy. I worked through the weekends, too. And so we had someone, it was a homeless guy, came in there every Sunday. And he was, digging out of the trash, homeless, didn't seem to have a bath in a long time. Mm-hmm. And he was talking to me, about his money. And he said, I only get $4,000 a month for my disability.
What?
He said that.
You mad?
I got to do some calculations. Wait a minute.
He said, that's not even a lot. There's most guys are getting $6,000. I said, because I'm like, I make $1,200 at this part-time job, and so that, oh my gosh. So we don't always know everybody's situation, but there's a lot of people out there who do have the help. And so I remember speaking to someone like, what are these vets doing with money? Oh, they're in the hotel rooms and they're doing this.
Yeah, doing the drugs, especially the Vietnam guys. And
so now every time I see a homeless veteran, I'm like, go to your local VA.
Right.
Because they will take care of you.
Yeah, the benefits are there.
The benefits are there, and not a lot of people realize that about our veterans. They have the benefits. Yeah. They will always have a free meal. They will always get shelter. They will always get those things.
Right. And Tay says, Tay is right. We all should be able to seek therapy to sort ourselves out. We have all things that we are things that we are dealing with and need to explore different avenues of mental health care. Available to us. I think that's because, for me personally, I've never gone to a therapist. And I'll be, see how they look like a word? Well, that explains it. And you figure, I'll be 50. Okay, let me quit. I'll be 49.
49. I'll be 50.
49 in a couple of months. And so as a black woman who's going to be 49 in a couple of months, that's a lot of years on the earth. Now, I've never seen a therapist. Well, how does that strike you?
I'm shocked.
With all the stuff you've been through?
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I can write a book. Right. Maybe that'll be therapy, a book.
Right.
So, do you think I should go talk to somebody? Because it's funny, because I was having this conversation with somebody earlier, and I said, trauma is triggered. So what I mean by that is, a lot of times we go through things in our life, and a lot of things are very traumatic. Mm-hmm. And we put it behind us. Oh, I'm going to let it go. I'm a new me, new year, new me. All this other stuff. And then something happens. And then all that trauma rushes right back in.
Right.
As if it happened, that day. Now, it might not have been, let's say, for example, an old relationship. Because I'm very open and honest with you guys about a lot of stuff I've gone through in a relationship. I've been cheated on by every man I've ever been with. Okay? Mm-hmm. And a lot of those things were traumatic. And so, let's say like you are in a new relationship and something happens and all that trauma comes rushing back in. And so you try to justify to yourself, I'm okay. I ain't tripping, this, that, the other.
Is that why you go kind of crazy when you see a truck pass by?
I hate to think my last husband was a truck driver. I'm doing eggs in a truck. Oh my God. But so the point that I'm making is trauma is triggered. And so a lot of times, as I said, you think that you're okay. I've dealt with that. I don't have no baggage. Mm-hmm. But in essence, you do. Mm-hmm. So how do you so should I go talk to somebody?
I do think you should talk to someone.
Yeah. Okay, would I be considered crazy?
No.
Y'all know me pretty well. Do y'all think I'm crazy?
No. And that's the thing.
You're
is
just a black woman.
You don't have
No, you know what I mean? That the stress that we go through being a black person. I mean, that's...
And that is trauma in and of itself.
Yeah, I mean, geez.
Go ahead, Tay.
You don't have to be crazy to be at peace.
Right.
To get peace.
I like that. Peace.
Mm-hmm. Peace.
Like you're sick. So I need to go talk.
Well...
I need to go talk to
And so a lot of times we throw around the word, happiness. And when people think of happiness, they think, oh, I'm just,
happy,
golly gee, guys, and smiling all the time. But really, you could be happy in one moment and sad in the next.
Exactly.
Peace is where you can have happiness, you can have, silence, you can have all of these things, but you're still going to be peace within yourself, because happiness to me sometimes is an outward thing. And so peace is more so within.
Yes.
And I think that if you were to go to therapy, I think you should go to therapy, because I know you are about to be married. And so I believe that you should do premarital counseling.
Oh no, then the relationship's over. It's over.
I believe in premarital counseling. I did not have premarital counseling, and I believe in premarital counseling. Okay, but I believe that you should, before uprooting your life, in order to join it with someone else, because you don't want to drag that baggage. So when you pack up from California and go to Texas, you want to only take the things that you need.
Right. That's a good idea. I'm actually going to, and it was funny because I was thinking about, maybe I need to see someone, because I always tell you guys too, and I'm going to get to you guys in comments. My mom passed away a little over 3 years ago. Right. And to a lot of us, I consider myself old school. That was my counselor. Mm-hmm. Anytime something would happen, Mom, let me tell you about this mother. Let me know this happened. Yeah. And she would just be able to say the right things, and you'd be like, you know what? I was tripping. Right. Or you right, but I don't have that, so.
But it's kind of like you and Deanna, how you advise your daughter.
Right.
Kind of thing. So.
And so, my aunt, we actually had a conversation recently, because my grandmother passed in the year of 2014. And my aunt said she hasn't really dealt with a lot of stuff. It was just so abrupt for her. It was just so, sudden, and she didn't really understand. She, kind of regretted things that she had said before. And she said that when she wanted to go speak to someone, she felt like she didn't want to tell someone her life in order for that person to judge her. And so in order for you to go to therapy, you have to leave pride at the door, and you have to learn how to be vulnerable. And some people need therapy to learn how to be vulnerable in order to receive it. So for me, I can say, like I said, I've been in therapy for 2 years. It took 1 year for me to understand how to be vulnerable with my therapist.
That's me, because I'm a gangster, right? And I'm like, shoot, I'm a G. I say that a lot too. So I need to be vulnerable, because a lot of times I do have this wall of like, nah, not me, fam.
And I mean, marriage and living with somebody, you know, got to involve some vulnerability. So you about to put yourself in a position where you do have to be vulnerable.
I've been there, sister. And hey, Son says a lot of homeless people don't want to. Let me see more, because I always miss my place. A lot of homeless people don't want to go to a shelter because of drug or alcohol addiction. They don't want to follow shelter rules. I said some of them, not all.
Right.
And not all homeless are broke, because if you're in Southern California, as you know, those people work and can't afford the housing, which is a political problem easily fixed by rent control.
Yes.
But you know that old greed thing. Absolutely. So yeah, we know that as a lot of working homeless people who literally work in their, live in their cars and go work in these high-rise buildings. In a lot of situations, they just can't afford. I mean, rent on average out here is about $2,200, $2,500, depending, and that ain't even no monstrosity of a house.
You're still in Beirut.
Yeah, okay.
You're still in Beirut.
So I mean, a lot of people just have been, like you said, priced out. To your other point, a lot of people aren't broke per se. They just. But it's a whole host of
and may not have family members they can roommate with, or a homegirl or something like that.
Well, some of y'all family members, you just don't want to do it.
Yeah.
But speaking of the stigma of, mental illness like that, like, okay, I fly airplanes, as we know, and I'm having a problem right now with my license being restricted because they want my military information in regards to my PTSD. Because you don't want somebody flying an airplane that has a bad day and they just crash the plane into the ground or whatever the situation is.
Right.
Now, I don't think there's anything wrong with me. Now, I think they're kind of going a little bit overboard with it.
No, they ain't, brother.
Well, you're
just a little crazy.
Maybe if you had clearance from a therapist saying that this person...
But the point is, though, for them to put me through that process, there's nothing. I don't exhibit any whatever their symptoms are.
We want to thank them.
But
us on the ground want to thank them.
But here's my problem. I think another one of the stigmas is people that are in these influential jobs. You don't want to go in there knowing that you have this situation or that situation. Like I said, even though I'm diagnosed with PTSD, that was a military thing that they did to cover their asses when those guys were coming back killing their girlfriends and wives. Now, I didn't have that situation, and so now it's affected me in regards to my professional and what I want to do and my quality of life.
Right.
So now I've got to jump through all these hoops to prove there's nothing wrong. Okay, good example of the doctor asked me the other day. He said, well, do you think you got PTSD? You know what my answer was?
What?
No, I'm just a black man living here. They ain't trying to hear that.
Well, are you episodic?
Well, no. But see, that's what I'm saying. Some of the symptoms of PTSD is the symptoms a black man would display just living here. Do you see what I'm saying?
I get what you're saying.
Yeah. So,
right.
So we got to think about that. There's a stigma, in regards. So some people don't want to go because it affects their jobs or.
All right. Let me get these comments. Hey, Sydney, what's happening at Al here? It's funny, Mr. Funny Man. When a family member had a mental illness, my white family admitted me into the psychiatric hospital, and my black family put a football helmet on me and locked me in the back room of my grandmother's house. He's a fool. And hey, Reginald, what's happening? Oh, Lord. Let's see. He says, that beautiful lady with the glasses on reminds me of a girl that I was crazy about in the past, but
this
she
ain't
broke
her.
my heart.
This ain't her.
Well, that went left.
Sydney says, word. Okay. And Son says, oh, and one more thing. I've seen more homeless whites than blacks. Well, that's probably true because they outnumber us,
population-wise.
Yeah. And Tay, you say, for those that are scared of therapy, Talkspace is a great space for someone that would like one-on-one care without the in-person visit. I've never heard of that before.
Yeah, there is a lot of apps too for mental.
Really?
Yeah. The VA has a lot of apps as well.
I can go in there with this. I can really cut loose too. Let me tell you,
this mother.
Right? They're gonna be like, they're gonna cut my app membership off.
Oh
and Tay says, also, wait. Somebody says no. Sydney says, I I'm an advocate for people to get therapy. Besides, you are friends with Donovan. So he said, I need to go on and get it just because I know you on the strip right there. And Tay says, if you are seeking a black therapist in your area, try the Black Therapist Network. I will. Yeah, and let me get to Al's comment, and then I'm going to ask you guys about that. Mm-hmm. And Al says, hey, Philip, Michael Thomas, Moreno Valley Vice with Donovan, and his blue jacket is on the air. So that's what you look like, Miami Vice. So that's another good point. Do you think, Donovan, have you ever seen a therapist?
Yes.
Okay, so let me ask both of you.
You have to, going through flight training.
Have you voluntarily, like, without?
No.
Okay.
Nothing wrong with me.
They drug you in there.
Both of y'all.
Nothing wrong with me.
They drug him in there screaming.
Go to therapy, both of y'all.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Since y'all both have seen a therapist, whether you wanted to or not,
right. Okay?
Do you think it's important to sit down with somebody who is like yourself, meaning somebody who's black?
Yes, because, I don't think it really matters, but to be more honest and comfortable, because when I went to my therapist, I had to kind of explain to them post-traumatic slave disorder, because they didn't understand, like, hey, that's a white experience.
Like, I've been through some things, and my people been through some things.
Yeah, I said, I'm the way I am.
Stuff.
You look at any black man, we don't have clear eyes. That's not a coincidence.
I don't have clear eyes because I have the flu. So.
Yeah, but you know what I mean? It's just the stress. And the therapist was like,
No.
I was educating the therapist. They were like, really? I was like, yeah. I said,
and they should know about this stuff, especially. So you're saying yes.
It helps to.
It is important to sit down with somebody black. Tay.
You don't have to explain. You don't have to explain stuff.
You don't think it's important?
I think you should be with whoever makes you feel comfortable. I've had a great black therapist before, and then after that it was a black woman who was like, well, hey, shit happens.
For real?
Yeah, and then that
black
was
woman.
And then I also have my psychologist who my psychiatrist, whichever it is, the one that actually was prescribing me the medication was a black woman. She was also like, hey, I got whoopings too growing up, so she was one of those, like, this and that, and it
charged it to the game.
Felt like she was tossing out, I'm like, well, listen, this is what it was for me.
She went to Acme Psychiatric School.
My current mental health doctor for PTSD, because I have to go through the VA because if I want to get my check.
Listen, brother, ain't no shame in the
game.
No.
Let me say this too. My current therapist is not. She's a woman, but she is not black.
Right.
And I don't feel like there's anything that I have to explain to her about being black, because I had to figure out how to separate being black and being a woman from being me and my problems with me.
Right.
So.
Right. Well, I sat down with my therapist. She went through all my records, right? She comes in there and she goes, what are you doing here? She goes, why are you here? There's nothing wrong with you. She kept asking me the questions, and I was like, that's what I keep trying to tell them. But because of the military putting that in the record, I have to go through the process. Now, normal is what is relative to whoever you're speaking to, period. So I don't know what normal is. My normal is different than yours, and yours.
So let me ask you this. What would cause a grown man to run around with Spock ears and a Star Trek uniform in the middle of the day?
Because we need a superhero out there.
Okay.
That's what
so that don't have nothing to do with you being crazy?
Nothing
that's
at all.
That's just what you like to do.
Yes, that's what I like to do.
And Spider-Man says, I saw a therapist. I recommend it. Okay.
And let me say, too, everything doesn't have to be a traumatic incident that you went through, because a lot of people need therapy from their relationships. Because...
Ooh, Jesus.
He
don't
Woosah. Look, I put one in the crazy house. I put one.
Oh, no. Look, so I can sit here and talk about so many different situations I know of, and I could say someone very close to me had to, go off of work in order to go through therapy from their relationship. There are people out there who will use and abuse you because they have stuff they haven't dealt with.
True.
So when getting into a relationship with someone, you need to be able to be like, baby, I think you need to go to therapy. Because there's only so much that, and I could get into the black woman story about this.
That's okay. Thank you.
I can get into
it. How much time we have on that podcast?
We got another 5 minutes.
Okay, so let me ask you this, since we went there. I was already thinking that.
Okay.
So a lot of times black women get accused of being tough, mean,
we're the opposite.
Just a whole host of negative stereotypes, I would say, attributed to us.
Al and I are witnesses.
No.
Okay.
Let me say this.
Do you think that would because I don't know how true that is. I know for myself I have to put on a tough exterior because a lot of things that I have gone through, so I will admit that. But do you think sitting down and as I'm just saying this as black women, because I like to think of myself as a whole black
person,
woman.
yeah.
So I think of as us as black women, do you think if we were to sit down with somebody and really just talk, about the things that we've gone through, the things we're going through, that would help us and maybe help our image a little bit?
I think that image comes because we're constantly being accused of being upset or aggressive or any of those things.
Is there any truth in that?
At some point, if I move your cup and you say, hey, I don't want you to move my cup. Can you move it back, please? And I say, well, why you talking all crazy and now you want to go off and I'm scared to move the cup back. Now you can be like, what happened? Like, what happened? Like, just move it back. Like, I just asked for something simple. And so that is what I feel like black women deal with so much. Because no matter how we say something, we could say it sweet, we could say it lovingly, we could text it, we could call you on the phone about it, we could write it down. It's always, people always get on the defense.
Okay, but let me ask you this, because I like to play devil's advocate a lot.
Thank you.
Do you think, to his point, do you think that is true for some?
I'll say this.
And most of us. But do you think it's some of us?
I will say that after going through that so much in our life, some black women have just now gotten are to get older and just like, well, forget it. Now I'm gonna just come at everybody.
Right.
And I think it just naturally, because there's not a lot of protection for us. Even with our black men, they cheat on us, they lie to us, they go off and get with somebody else.
You can't protect. Yeah, you can't protect people that don't want to be protected.
But see, the thing is, we want that. We had fathers that may have left us and things like that. So we do want that, but there's not a lot of protection for us. And we're the last on the totem pole when it comes to people being considerate.
Right.
So you get frustrated and you get to the point where it's like, if I got to do it by myself. So while we're packing on kids and relationships and everybody baggage and all these things and jobs and we got to hold it. So then somebody come up and ask us a question. It's like, you see what I got going on? Well, let me keep, going forward. And so I think just eventually we do build up a resentment and a bitterness towards people who forgot about us, people who weren't our therapists, people who didn't allow us to lean on them, people who weren't supportive of us, of our dreams, and we wanted to go to school, we wanted to do these things.
But what happens when you meet a guy that is opposite of that was doing all that stuff?
Hold that thought. I'm going to get these questions. And Patricia says, Donovan, I like what you said about normal, being normal.
Yeah.
And Kay says, I went to therapy before and after I retired from the military to help with the struggles that I see others have gone through. Yeah. And DeLeon, what's happening? He says, this is always a hard sell because black folks self-medicate, which is very true.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. And Al, I'm always scared to read his stuff. He says, Nurse Demetra, Dr. Donovan is a patient online who says he's invisible. Dr. Donovan, tell him I can't see him right now. So it's like some patient humor, hardy hard. She said, skip Al's comments. Oh my gosh. Al. He says, how many narcissists does it take to change a light bulb? Just one. All have to do with holding a place while the world revolves around them. Mm-hmm. Anyway, go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, so what happens when you meet a guy that is opposite of everything that you're saying? Because I was in a situation where, I'm a nice guy, whatever, and I met this woman, and Dee saw she would come over here, I was just on pins and needles.
He was triggered. Every time I would see him, he was like, "Oh my gosh, she did this, she did that."
And I think it's
he
because
was like static.
Yeah, and I think it's because she brought a lot of that stuff in her past, how she was treated, into the new relationship, and it was like, I'm not that guy.
And that goes for anybody though. That's not a black woman thing. That's not a black man thing. Mm-hmm. That's anybody who's gone through something. So, like I said, before you get into a relationship with somebody, you need to know how they deal with their past traumas. Have they been to therapy? Oh, you're telling me that your ex-boyfriend abused you. Okay, well, have you gotten help for it?
And stay tuned, you guys, on the podcast. We're going to come back with the other half of this conversation because it is
you ain't going nowhere.
Important that we continue for the next half. So stay tuned.
But 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 that's a good question. So okay, I'm a man. You're an attractive woman. Hey, by the way, have you had therapy? That ain't gonna get me the digits.
Okay, that's a good question right there. But
that's
when
you're getting to know somebody. When you're getting to know somebody, because the same way you want to check and see, do you have STDs? Are you healthy? Are you this?
I don't ask that till after they.
I can't stand part of it.
There's a lot of important questions
yes,
out there. So that is something that's important too, because for me, that's something I'll talk about on the first date. Like, So
let's say this. So you're saying that you think the therapy question should be one of those getting to know you thing. So let's say they say, "No, I've never seen a therapist." How would that make you see them from that point?
At that point, I would, say, well, are you ever interested in that? Do you ever see that, or do you believe in it? Now, to me, if I were to ever be with somebody else, than that man, I feel like if there's someone that's like, oh, it's witchcraft, and that's that taboo stuff, I couldn't be involved with you, especially because that's the field that.
Have you had somebody tell you that was witchcraft?
Yes, actually, I'm glad you asked that, because there was someone who I was, I'm very